Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Things That I Wish My Mum Had Told Me podcast with me, your host, Emma Tamsin Hill.
And me, your other host, Clara Hermit.
That was like a boxing intro. Clara Hermit.
I like doing the boxing intro kind of voice though. And we get to do it again today because we've got a guest. But before we introduce our guest, which is why we're sitting next to each other, by the way.
Different scenario
we're in close proximity. But before we get to our guest, just want to say that if you are listening, please make sure that you like the podcast, leave us a review, all of that stuff really, really helps. And we really appreciate it. Really.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In advance.
And now, let's welcome our first guest. So it's not our first guest that we've ever had, but it's our
third guest we've ever had.
Our third guest.
Yeah.
Our guest for today. She is a dating educator. She's a Sunday Times best-selling author of the incredible book, If You Don't Have It and You Are Dating, it's called Block, Delete, Move On, and the host of the It's Not You, It's Them, but also It Might Be You podcast. It is LALALA Let Me Explain.
Hi.
Hi.
That was nice.
Now, obviously, we can see you right now. For people watching this, you're going to be pixelated. And to get any comments out the way, and obviously for people who are listening, this won't necessarily affect you. But can you just explain to people, because on your platforms, you're completely anonymous. So before people start going, why can't we see her? Why is she anonymous?
It really annoys me. And it shouldn't annoy me because actually it's a pretty reasonable question, especially in this day and age where obviously you just see everyone's face. I just don't want to be famous. I just would like to give out all of this information without it being not associated to me, but there are about 4,000 different reasons why I just don't want my face out there. I was a social worker for many years. I worked in child protection. I've obviously been in situations where I've removed children from families or removed families from abusive men. So that there feels like there could be a risk to me. But sort of beyond that, I've got a little boy. I don't necessarily want him to be the kid at secondary school whose mum's on the internet talking about sex. I also want to protect me and him. You know, I live alone at home with a son. And sometimes, the nature of the things that I do talk about can cause people to dislike me or feel anger towards me. I don't want that taken out on me in any way. And I just feel like I can be much more honest. I can be really open. And it means I can tell stories about my parenting or about my daddy issues and things like that. And I can be really free because none of you know who the fuck my dad is. And there's no way of you knowing because I'm anonymous, So I feel like I'm protecting people in my life as well. Just multiple reasons. However, having said all of that, with the cost of living crisis, if the shit ever hits the fan, brands do not want to work with me. Yeah. Brands are dumb. They're thick. They look way more, I don't know what they're looking at, but I think they don't realise that I can still engage with my followers without people seeing my
100%.
face. So I can't earn as much. My peers who are in the same position as me earn fuck tons more than me. And so that is the only thing. It's what I always say. If you ever see my face, just know it's poverty and move on. You know what I mean?
The cost of living crisis got you.
Yeah.
And on from that as well, because I know that I've seen this on your page where, you create kind of clips of your podcast or of its kind of stills that you've done, or you answering dilemmas, and when stuff goes viral, you always get someone who questions your credentials. Like, well, who are you to give advice anyway? And you're so overqualified. So I thought, you might want to reel off a few of those while we're here now, just to kind of, clear it up for anyone who's like, well, what makes her a dating educator and, someone who can speak on all of these topics?
It's funny, isn't it? Because nobody ever fucking questions anyone else. But I get all the people are always, all right, so who are you to tell us? You don't even show your face. It's like, what has that got to do with it? So I originally worked as a sexual health and relationships educator for the NHS. So that involved going around teaching safe sex and relationships education in like schools, youth settings, young offenders institutes. And I also trained as a drugs educator to do the same thing. I've done loads of stuff like working in prisons, working in helping mums to reunify mums in prison with their children, mentoring for young offenders. I've done a counselling diploma, and then I did a social work degree. I got a first.
Yeah.
And then I worked as a frontline social worker in child protection, specialised in domestic abuse, and I was also the borough lead for MAPA, which means that I was making all the decisions about or helping to make decisions about high risk offenders, how to manage them, how to stop them abusing children. I've also got postgraduate diploma in educating and enabling others, which means I can teach people to become social workers. I mean, I
That's
could keep
amazing.
going.
You could
like,
keep
yeah,
going.
yeah,
Yeah.
The list is there, but I just thought, we'll kind of get these little things cleared up right at the start.
Yeah.
And I'm sure none of our listeners would care anyway. But I think it's just really important sometimes to say, yeah, I've got the qualifications. Thanks, mate. Which I know you do. Sometimes you're just like, I'm gonna just let you know and have a little clap back at you.
But it doesn't always mean that I'm right.
No.
That's the other thing. And all of this stuff is so nuanced. And what might be right for you isn't going to be right for you. And the thing about being a social worker is that I would have, to really give advice to someone, I'd have had to do a whole assessment. I'd have to understand everything about your family, your history, the context, your environment. And you just don't get that in this kind of format. So my advice isn't always right. You don't always have to take it. But my advice is definitely grounded in, evidence-based research, facts.
I think it just creates a lot of like people get annoyed when I can't have what they want exactly straight away. So I think that because they can't see your face or they can't pin you in a certain box, I think people get their backs up about it.
I just think people, if they don't agree with what you're saying, but they might know that you're making a good point. It's like, right, how can I rip this person down? Like, how can I devalue what they've said and make them, like look stupid because they've made me feel stupid? We were talking about this on another episode, but this kind of idea of being so triggered by social media, and so many people aren't they? And I think, for me personally, whenever I do posts about, whether it's like the being single stuff or anything that kind of pokes fun at the current like dating scene, which, let's be honest, is a mess, and at men, it really triggers some men.
And I don't understand. This is partly why I really appreciate my anonymity, because I couldn't handle what you guys get. Because I know that when you say stuff about 40, single, happy, there's always going to be someone who's like, yeah, that's because look at your face, or what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would really struggle with that. I don't have a thick enough skin for that. I would take that on board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're really brave for facing that, because you've got the same you've got the same kind of backlash on things that I get.
Yeah. And you definitely have had to experience that as well, because we've spoken about that. And I think that when I started doing the In Bed with Clara series, and I was having people like Emma on and different people, I was that's when I really realized that even if whatever content someone is making, even if it's not like kind of provocative in any way, they are still getting horrible negative comments. People are out there doing that. And then I bumped into another influencer when I was in Costa Rica, Madly, that I hadn't seen for years. And he told me that he purposefully does stuff like he mispronounces words or does whatever, just so people are like, oh, this fucking dick idiot can't even pronounce da-da-da-da, because the more comments there are, the more engagement there is, the more it hacks the algorithm.
That's bad, but it's smart.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But I know you've definitely experienced that kind of negative side, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think because my content is very centered around like who I am as a person and my personality, then people have a lot more space and room to like make their own judgments and then dig in and try and get at the things on your inner self to like pull you apart. It's not just like physical. I've always had like physical comments like, oh, you are a big fat whale, like original, well done. But like when you're showing so much of your personality, people will be like, oh, you have so many issues in this space. And that's like, them ones are a bit more like,
Yeah, when people reach for those.
It's a bit like what abusive partners do, isn't it? Like you reveal your vulnerabilities, and then that's the part that they will use to attack you, because everybody knows that no matter how much you've healed or how much you've developed, in all of us, there is that thing that can just make you go, oh,
yes,
maybe that is a bit true.
Definitely.
Like...
And they're the ones that hurt, the ones that we have at some point believed, or that are part of our subconscious program, that are still there, that if someone can poke at and trigger in us, they're the ones that hurt. Because if someone said something about you that you've never thought about yourself, you're probably not going to be infected by it. But when it is something you've thought about yourself, that's when That's when it gets you.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
is. So we've asked our audience for topics and things that they want us to talk
Dilemmas
about. We've
that
got some
we're going to
questions, we've
discuss.
got some dilemmas for you because you are, I guess, the ultimate agony aunt. You do loads of that stuff on your podcast, on your page.
I've got a column with OK, I'm OK magazine's
Yes.
weekly agony aunt as
I
well.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm officially an agony aunt.
Official. It's an official agony aunt, but not just like Dear Deirdre. We're not talking about that, the one from the Sun newspaper. We're talking about proper agony aunt. So the first ones aren't dilemmas; they're just questions that people have put. And the first question is, how can I be in a healthy relationship after a toxic one? And the anxiety that having been in a toxic relationship causes once you're in any other relationship, I guess.
The obvious therapy. And
Mm.
that's it. Like there is really there is no magic tool. I mean, I suppose you can kind of do some self-led therapy in the sense of journaling or whatever, reading books that people have recommended to you.
Block, delete, move on.
Yeah, block, delete, move on. Or there's other stuff, depends on how toxic the relationship is, whether she means toxic between the two of them or abuse. It's a really good book called Why Did He Do That by something Lundy. I can't remember the first name of the person. That's a really good book, which helps you to have a look at them and their behavior and the fact that you weren't the cause of it. And it really highlights sort of how common these patterns of behavior are. But I think it's about looking after yourself, having that therapy, and taking a bit of time out, not rushing into other relationships, but also remembering that this relationship is likely to have taught you something. So you will be well aware now of the red flags that you maybe overlooked or experienced in that relationship that would have alerted you maybe at the beginning that this probably wasn't right. So instead, I think of seeing, I mean, of course, it's anxiety provoking to start dating again, but actually having that confidence of knowing I am in a much better place now. I have much more experience and much more knowledge, and I am much more likely to spot those things. And
Yeah.
you will, if you're out dating, you're going to run into red flags. You're going to run into people who will be
They're
toxic
everywhere.
for you. You're going to, you can't avoid that. What you can do is get to a place where you can really reassure yourself that A, I can identify red flags now, and B, I know exactly what to do when I see them.
Run.
And that is run, yeah.
Run. And also, just to say, something that I was first introduced to in your book actually was attachment styles. And that's been really helpful for me because my attachment style is anxiously attached. And so I've done a lot of work on that since kind of discovering that that's an actual thing and understanding why that happens and, what about my childhood would have caused that to happen. And then when I kind of start dating people, I used to get really kind of, like anxious. I wouldn't be able to kind of think about anything else or, it just was like horrible. And now it's completely different. So, I might get a little bit annoyed when people don't do what I kind of expect and want them to do, but it's nothing like it used to be because it used to be all consuming.
That's limerence.
Right. Okay.
I don't know what my attachment style is.
No, but limerence is different. So I've heard you talk about limerence as well.
Is a feeling that results from, I guess, from your anxious attachment style or ADHD or whatever. But that consumption, that infatuation, that everything is taken over by thoughts of this person who you've probably been on one date with, like that is limerence. And I only learned about that a couple of years ago, and it was learning about that made me really be able to start making changes in that behavior.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same as you. I've got a disorganized attachment style. So I'm not anxious or avoidant. I'm a bit of both depending on who I'm with. So if I'm dating someone who is avoidant, I will become anxious. And then I get all limerent-y and I get obsessed, and like them not messaging me will like literally consume my entire fucking day. Can't think about anything else, can't eat. And then the message comes through and that's it. Like springing my step again. My entire mood would be dictated by whether they're into me or not. But then the problem is that if I meet somebody who's got an anxious attachment style, I become the avoidant one.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm like this too.
So that's a disorganized attachment style. So you either have avoidant, so you either have secure. Most people are actually secure. If you were raised well, not raised well, but if you were raised in an environment where you knew your needs were going to be met, where you were safe, where your cries would be heard, where your hungry belly would be fed, and your emotional needs were met. Really, it's more about your emotional needs being met. If you have that kind of parenting style, then you are secure. You can bond with other people. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have anxiety or you're not going to have avoid. We can all kind of mesh across, but in general, you're pretty okay. You're good to have relationships. Anxious is, of course, maybe somebody who's experienced loss in childhood or parental separation, or just somebody who your needs weren't met effectively. You didn't know if you were going to get abandoned. You didn't know if somebody was going to be there for you, and then you cling on. You feel like any relationship, like I have to hang on to you because you are everything. Avoidant is, I guess, if we raise our children more in that, like, so a lot of men are avoidant because a lot of us raise boys in that way of like keep them clean, fed, take them to football every day. But if they cry, it's like, no, get up. No, not meeting this need whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, I am not meeting this emotional need of yours because you don't need that because you're a boy. And so a lot of men are avoidant. And that is, they're up for relationships, they're up for intimacy, but then they get that suffocated feeling. And it's like, oh, you like me too much. Oh, go away, you're putting me off. And so if you're disorganized, then you're a mixture of the two.
And then limerence is something separate.
So
What
then
is limerence?
So limerence, basically, I've got a whole podcast on it. Listen to, it's not you, it's them, but it might be you. Because if you Google LALALA Let Me Explain podcast, it takes you to my old one. So look for it's not you, it's them, it might be you. And listen to my limerence podcast. It's about half an hour long, so it's like a short one. Limerence is a feeling. So some people fall in love really normally, and I guess normally would be you meet someone, you like them, but you're not like, I'm gonna fucking marry you and spend my whole life
Before you know
with you.
anything about them.
Yeah. Like normal people. Me too, don't worry. Like, but normal people, I don't know about normal people. I don't know how it works for them, but generally they meet someone and they take it slow.
Right. Yeah.
They like someone as much as you are supposed to like them after knowing them for one day. And then they just gently fall in love. Whereas limerent people are like, I've found you. And sometimes the limerence can even start when you've matched them just on a dating app. You haven't even really spoken to them or heard their voice. You're like, this is familiar to me. I recognize a pattern here. This face looks almost familiar I can tell that this man is gonna trigger off. I can see a man who's gonna trigger off limerence in me. They always have this familiarity about them. And and then you just become consumed. Literally consumed, and limerence will drive you to try to start modifying your social media solely to attract their attention. So if you've matched somebody on a dating app and they're like, I'm really into poetry, and you're like, fucking poetry, you will start flinging up fucking poems on your stories because that's, you want to almost become them, become everything that you think that they want you to be. And it is just infatuation.
Right.
And it can you put them on a pedestal and it can crash. But yeah, listen to my podcast. So I go into it really deeply, but it's very common with ADHD and very common with people with anxious attachment styles.
Okay, so that makes sense. But I think I guess like now I'm in a place where even though I still get the kind of feelings of, I would say, I don't know if it's limerence, but they're more of, I think it's more anxious, like attachment, where I'm like, I want to hear from them or whatever it is. I understand that that's not actually me, and I can rationalize that I don't know this person, and actually, if this is the way they're acting, then they're not someone that I want, and then that helps me get back into like my power.
I think that the bit that I get stuck on is, but why don't they want me?
Right. Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So and that's the bit that triggers my anxious attachment and my limerence and whatever, is that I can rationalize it totally in the same way that you can, that like, this flaky communication, this person not messaging me back, like we went on a date and I haven't heard from you for 3 days. Turn off. That's actually very ick to me.
Yeah.
As a 40-year-old woman who is dating men of my age, I'm like, if you haven't developed those communication styles, improved your communication, then that's fucking ick to me. But then at the same time, I'm always left with this thing of like, but why don't you want to be talking to me in the like, I like you, let's get to know me. But
Yeah.
but instead they're doing all this fucking flaky. So on the one hand, there's this like, no, fuck off, get away. But then on the other, there is always, for me, even though I've worked with it, there is still always that thing of me, what?
But
Why don't you want me?
And again, that sounds like, I guess it's like your critical thinking mind versus like that subconscious, like smaller, younger part of you that, wants that kind of validation, I guess, in a way, right? But I think I'm putting myself into those situations, not by want of choice, but just because of the world of dating and the way that it is. And every time it gets easier. And every time I think the different, like the only thing that I can say, and this has happened to me really recently, Emma's laughing at me, but the only thing that I can say is like, I understand it's not me. Like I totally get that it's not me. And there's some, I think on some level there's been like some kind of like shift and acceptance that it's like, it's not about them not wanting me. They don't even see me. They're not even capable of knowing or experiencing me. So there's somewhere deep down where it's kind of shifted a bit. So I feel like I never have before. I feel really kind of good about this current situation that I'm in.
I think you're very good at like setting boundaries, and as soon as you realize someone is not for you, you're just like, dumb.
Yeah, but that I would say that's the last couple of years that I've got like that. It's taken me a long time to get to the point where I can be like, I'm not even wasting my time on you. You're not serious.
Me too.
And that's a good place to get to.
Definitely.
The next one is why grown men can't communicate well and then they hurt you. And I guess it could be some of the stuff we've spoken about, like the avoidant attachment style, but dating in 2023 is an absolute nightmare. Like, what is going on, and why does it feel like it's playing a game of chess, or even like you're going into battle?
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? And it does. I mean, I've been saying for a while now that I think we're all completely mentally ill post-pandemic. I really do. Like, I think a lot of us don't even quite realise how much it's affected us mentally. I don't think the entire world has recovered properly. From the effects of the pandemic. I think that's had a huge thing, and I think that changed people. I think we went through fucking traumatic crisis, and I think that really changed people. I think it made some people go, "Oh, I really want a relationship." It made a lot more people go, "I just want my fucking freedom."
Yeah.
And I think that sense of not wanting to be locked down, in the pandemic, has sort of seeped into people's consciousness a bit. Like, I just don't want to be locked down in any way. So many people are leaving their careers and going freelance and becoming self-employed. I think that's all in the same vein. Like, I don't want that. I don't want to be trapped. And so I think that does affect people in relationships. I think dating apps and social media have utterly destroyed dating.
Yeah.
I think there's too much choice, too much options. Nobody invests anymore. There is definitely a sense of like, well, if this one doesn't work out, there's 10 more that I could swipe on in the next 10 minutes, So I think it's that's had a detrimental effect. I just think the world is in a bit of a fucked up place. And honestly, this is why I always say, me as a dating educator, I can help you to avoid abusive relationships. I can help you to avoid repeating your patterns. I don't know how to help you to find love. I don't know how to tell you this is a surefire way to get the guy of your
It's a bunch of
dreams.
shit anyway.
That's a bunch of shit. But also, I have no fucking clue. And if someone knows, tell me, because I'm encountering the same shit all the time. And what does seem to be at the crux of every single issue I have with men is men not being able to communicate properly.
Yeah. Because my thing is as well, like, just know what you want and then be honest about it. If you just want casual sex, be honest about it, because there's somebody else out there who also wants just casual sex. If you want to, and my thing is that I've encountered quite a lot of times is guys who say they want relationships, but they're not emotionally available enough or emotionally mature enough to even have a relationship or to communicate, and then suddenly they just go like that, and then it just like, what, I don't understand what's happening and why people, because relationships can be so great and so beneficial, but why it seems like, and not obviously it's not all men, but some men seem really scared.
Do you think part of that though is about like how men are raised and how it's like you're not supposed to show your emotions, you're not supposed to say how you really feel, and then it just comes out this way as they get older in their dating life. I'm not saying it's acceptable and they should work on it, but do you think that's maybe why they all act like that? Maybe not all, but quite a lot of men act like that.
I think it's part of it, but I don't understand, because men, men's conditioning has always kind of been like that, right? But they still managed to have relationships before.
But you know what?
What's gone upside down?
So I used to be able to have relationships extremely easily.
Yeah, when I was younger, you go out, meet someone, go on a couple
But
dates.
think about the difference now. Would you be in a relationship with any of those men now? You wouldn't. The thing is, I think as women, and I think this is a really common thing, we really evolve. Obviously, men evolve, but we talk to each other. We go to therapy. We go on fucking spiritual healing journeys. You know what I mean? The amount of times I've been like, come to my house and do magic mushrooms with some crystals on a fucking blanket. Me and my friends will sit there and cry and really fucking heal.
Can we come next time?
Yeah, you'd love it. But how many men are doing that? And shout out to the ones who are doing the work, because you are a rare breed still at the moment. And I think that is what I'm noticing is huge progress, because I meet guys and I'm like, I would have been in a relationship with you if I'd have met you 15 years ago, and now it's not happening. So I think that's the issue, is that I have really progressed. My communication has really improved. I have different expectations, and then I feel like I'm constantly dating down. I feel like I constantly am meeting men and I'm like, what do you think about feminism? And they're like, what, that femme fresh shit that you wash your vagina with? I'm like, oh, feminism, you can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just not meeting men who are meeting me at my level anymore.
Just to clarify, when you're talking about dating down, because I think if we went to the manosphere and they were talking about kind of dating down, it would all be down to like how tall he was, how rich he was. And if you were dating down, you'd be dating someone that was shorter, uglier than you, and had less money than you.
I don't care if he works in Morrison's and he's 5'7". I couldn't give a fuck. But when I talk about dating down, I really mean intellectually, morally, emotionally, intellectually. That is the main one. And I feel like 20 years ago, whatever, I was on the same emotional and intelligence levels as these guys. You can get relationships really easy if you're kind of thick and you're not thinking about the world around you, and you're not thinking about yourself, and you're not evolving. That's why at 19, it's so easy to get a relationship.
Yeah. And you don't, at that point, I suppose, like, you don't really know your worth. You don't really know what you want. You don't really know what makes you happy. You don't really know what makes you feel supported and safe and secure and all of those kind of things. And you were just talking about feminism. Like, you don't know what your view of the world is yet at that point. And then you get to a certain age and you do. And I can't imagine, like, I've had conversations with guys, and if they ever say that they watch, Andrew Tate, Early Things, like any of those people, I was so shocked. There was a documentary that you posted about Pearly Things. If people don't know who she is, she's the female version of Andrew Tate. That's just for simple reasons, just call her that. And there's a documentary called The Unpickable Pick Me. And so I watched that. And then when I went onto her Instagram, I was scrolling, and so many people that I follow had liked her pictures. And I was just like, no, or like her posts and stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, I have to unfollow them.
But I think it's got to this point now where it's like a war, men against women, because women are saying, oh, men are trash, men are this, men are that, and then all the men are like, well, you women are this and you just want us for our money, and and it's just like they're just clashing when no one is actually.
But I don't think that's what actual women and men are saying. I think that's just the internet.
Well, first of all, it's just the internet, and also we cannot see it as a clash, because they are a backlash, but they don't even seem to know what the fuck they're backlashing against, these misogynistic men. And it's a backlash to women literally fighting. For example, if you had people who were fighting an anti-racist fight, and a whole load of white supremacists were going, fuck this, that's not true, we wouldn't be going, oh, it's just racists and non-racists against each other. No, we'd be like, this fucking group are trying to oppress this other group who are just trying to fight for their rights. And that's exactly what is happening with men and women. Feminists enabled women to say, actually, I don't have to get married. I don't have to become a mother. I don't have to do a certain job or whatever. And a whole load of conversations. I don't have to have sex with this man. Yeah, I don't have to have sex with my husband just because he wants to or whatever. And then this growing voice is like, hold up a minute, You're not a woman if you don't cook for your man. You're not a woman if you've had more sex with more than 3 people. That is not men versus women. It is misogynists versus people asking for equality.
Mhm.
And I hate the way it's framed as men versus women, because then it just sounds like we're on an equal
And we've
footing.
never been.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, if you look back to you back then, I'm sure you were the same as me. I was the biggest pick me, such a pick me, So if men were saying things like, "Well, women are this and that," I'd be like, "Yeah, those bitches. I'm not like that. I'm exactly like that." You know what I mean? I was the biggest pick me. If they'd be talking about body counts, I'd be like, "Oh, gross. Oh, I'd never sleep with more than one person in my life." Fucking knock the 5 off the end of that one. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can't. Because I'm no longer willing to be like, pick me.
Mhm.
You don't get picked.
Mhm.
It's very true, because I couldn't do it. I can't do it. For me, it's like that. It's that level of ignorance. It's a level of ignorance, isn't it? Because I think if you're in a male body, you exist in a world where a lot of times they've never even thought about what it's like to be a woman. If you're lucky, they might have thought about the fear that you face when you're walking home, let alone when it's dark and you're walking home, or some of those things. And never have they thought about, the sexual harassment or the rape or any of those things, let alone what it feels like to not be able to express yourself or go and do the things that you want to do because you're going to be tarred with a label like slag or slut or whatever it is. And so I think it's just ignorance, and it's really difficult to be in a relationship with someone who has a level of ignorance is not easy. But I do also think that what you're talking about in terms of that kind of like online world where there's created a battle, you do get, women going on there and saying, well, I wouldn't date someone unless he's over 6'5" and he
Yeah.
earns
And I hate
six
all that.
figures.
Yeah, same.
But that's not representative of the majority of women. It's
Yeah.
But the thing is, people see things on social media and take it as gospel. They actually
Yeah.
don't do their own critical thinking and look at the real world around them. Some people will see things on social media and be like, "Yep, that's the reality. That's the truth. That's my life."
But I think that's the narrative that the manosphere use to support this is why I want a woman that does this, and this is why I want a woman that does that. And, to kind of say to guys out there, all women want a high value man. What is a fucking high value man? Because your high value man, like we've been speaking about today, is someone who's emotionally available or who's educated, who's intellectual, who's, not ignorant. But, that's what a high value man would be to me.
Yeah.
But their frame is a high value man is someone who's rich and powerful and,
Yeah.
and puts, has a virgin, only dates
Yeah.
18-year-olds.
Because that's the thing though, all those opinions are to appease other people.
Yeah.
People looking in on your relationship. They're actually not to please yourself. It's so you look good to everyone else. And I find that kind of sad.
Yeah, but it is. But that's the business, isn't it? Those people are grifters. They've created a whole business
Exactly
out of that.
Yeah.
Makes them a lot of money to
Yeah.
sell that dream to sad, lonely individuals.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do another question? Oh, which
go
one
for
should
it.
which one should we do?
Go for it. Just go for that one.
I think I'm gonna do
Go for it.
betrayal and how it affects us emotionally and mentally. Ooh.
Oh, is that
We're
the
looking at
question?
you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought there was going to be like, today I got betrayed. by some-"
No, we're not on the
Okay.
dilemma show.
No,
We've
I've got a
some-
dilemma
we've got
for you,
some
but in a little
stories for you
bit.
in a minute.
Oh, well, I mean,
There's lots of different types of betrayal,
That's
isn't
what I
there?
mean.
the cheating, if that's what we're talking about, is has such a catastrophic impact, I think, on the self-esteem, on your ability to trust other people, but also on your ability to trust yourself. And I think that's the scariest part of it, because I think not being able to trust somebody who you deeply trusted. But I think often, if you're being cheated on, not always, but often, there will be signs. You will know somewhere in your gut that something isn't right. Or maybe you didn't notice at all. And in both scenarios, it's a bit like, I can't rely on myself to keep myself safe because I didn't notice this, or I noticed this and I didn't fucking, I didn't do anything about it. So, but I think the self-esteem is the worst way, because then those two things come together. If you can't trust yourself, you can't trust other people, you're also feeling incredibly low confidence, really hating yourself, really questioning And the worst thing that we do is compare ourselves to the other person that they cheated with, which then feeds in further to the low self-esteem. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible thing to go through. And I think betrayal, even by friends and stuff, gives you that same feeling, that sickness. Like, how could you do that to me? And again, who can I trust? Can I even trust me? Because I put my trust in this person and I got that wrong, you know? So it's incredibly complex. And I always just think therapy is the answer for everything,
Yeah.
even if it's just short term block of counseling rather than a big psychotherapy. Just so you've got somebody to sound off, somebody who's totally neutral, who you can just sit and talk in front of and explore all of those feelings, because all of those feelings are valid. The low self-esteem, the sickness, and you know, the queries about trust. But it's about working through those and making sense of those and compartmentalizing them back to where they need to be. Do you know? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It makes total sense, yeah. And I do think, just as you were saying that, I just, you know, like I was thinking about the thing of when you know someone's cheating on you, but you just don't have the evidence. Like you
Yeah.
just know, like sometimes there's just something in your gut and you're like, and it makes you feel like you're going crazy
You
as
can
well.
just feel it.
Especially when they lie to your face.
Yeah.
I've not, maybe because I'm kind of delusional. I don't think I've been
Cheated on.
not cheated on and found out. Probably been cheated on, but you know, where it's all come out and I've found out and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. It just is not a nice.
Oh, it's so gutting. There's
Yeah.
nothing worse.
When you find the actual evidence,
Oh,
it
it's
Yeah.
just
takes your
like
breath away.
Oh, but the adrenaline
Yeah.
that goes through your
Yeah.
body, and it's hard to know how to react. You can't eat. Your heart is going, like dry mouth. Like it's a very horrible feeling.
Yeah. Don't betray people, folks. It's not a nice thing
Stop
to
it.
do.
Okay.
We'll do one more
We'll
question.
do one more and then
move
we'll
on to
do a
the
dilemma. Okay, I think this
we
one's a
should do
big
this
one.
the last one, yeah.
So this person wants to know how to say no and how to set boundaries.
Just say no, no. Do you remember that song? Just
that by?
say no. It's
Is it
about
for drugs?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's really difficult, actually, because you know, it's really easy to just be like, just say no.
Yeah. I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
then when you're in the moment, it's very difficult.
You know, it is difficult, but I think it's important to practice. I think it's actually it can really help to practice that conversation before you have it. To be able to set boundaries is incredibly important in any relationship. So if you are somebody who feels unsure about saying no, think about the different scenarios that you might be encountering. And actually, literally at home, you can either write it in your journal or say it out loud in front of the mirror. Practice ways of saying no, because it doesn't have to be no.
Yeah.
You know, practice different ways that feel comfortable to you. And also realize that boundaries are really important and people will respect them. And also that your boundaries can change. So just because, you know, because I think some people feel nervous about setting boundaries because it maybe feels like a sort of absolute. Whereas actually boundaries are really fluid. And I think the most important thing is really being in tune with yourself and having good self-esteem and being able to know that you deserve to set those boundaries, and that if you lose people as a result of setting them, then that's okay. They were dangerous people to you anyway. I know we all always like, oh, you know, it's okay to lose people, and it doesn't always feel like that.
God,
Yeah.
no,
If
it
you've got
doesn't, yeah.
limerence and whatever, you know, it feels like I would do anything. I would compromise any boundary to keep this person in my life, but that never leads to anything good. So
Yeah.
I think we just have to remember the importance and actually the fact that it brings so much better people to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you've created those boundaries and used them a couple of times to get rid of a few people, that's the time I feel when good, better people start coming into your life.
Yeah. This is something that I have really struggled with, like setting boundaries in romantic situations and like being able to say no, especially like sexually when maybe I was just not really in the mood for something and I did it anyway to appease the other person. Like I've had really bad like people pleasing problems. So this is something that I've tried. I think I've been working on it. I have been working on it. It's got better, but it's a journey, isn't it?
It is a journey.
I just wanted to say with the sexual thing, sometimes I think for women and gay men as well, I've spoken to a lot of gay men in this situation, less so for men who sleep with women, that there is a safety thing to consider there as well. You know, I think we shouldn't necessarily beat ourselves up if we are not setting clear boundaries sexually. I mean, we should be, and we should endeavor to. But I think that actually what sometimes gets forgotten about is in those situations is that thing that, that survival
Mm-hmm.
thing that fills you, where, you're probably in bed with somebody who could hurt you quite badly.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're not making you feel fear, or they're not coercing, well, maybe coercing you in some way, they want to try something, you're saying no, 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 no. It's very easy for us to go, just say no. But actually, you have to weigh up,
Mm-hmm.
is it actually safer for me to just go ahead and
Mhm.
Yeah.
and allow this to happen,
Mm-hmm.
rather than saying no? And of course, that would amount to rape. That is non-consensual.
Mm.
But I think people forget about that aspect for women, which is that actually
Safety.
safety is a
Yeah.
really important thing to consider when we are setting our boundaries. And then maybe our boundaries need to be further. Maybe our boundaries need to be, I'm not going to his house. I'm
Yeah.
not going to your house. I'm not sleeping with you until I trust you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think, like, from my own experience, and I guess from talking to Emma as well, I think certainly when I was younger, a lot of the stuff I was doing for validation. And so it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't, that man would not have been aware that I wasn't really enjoying it, or I didn't really want to do it, but I did it because I wanted to make them happy.
Yeah.
And that would in turn validate me. It's
Yeah.
in some kind of way of feeling worthy. And I think there's probably a lot of people who also, need better boundaries in that sense. And I think you just have to get to a point where it's like, no, what my pleasure matters. And, I am only, like, again, if I'm having sex with someone I feel safe with, then I'm going to assert my boundaries. I know you said that you like to kind of talk to people about what they like and what they don't like before you're even in that situation. So it makes you feel more confident when you are.
Yeah, so it's not all, because I know when you're getting down to it, like you might feel a bit scared to speak up and be like, "Oh, I don't like that you're doing that," because it can like ruin the mood or whatever. So that's why I like to have them conversations before, usually. Then you
Yeah.
all know.
Mm.
I think it's important. So there's one more thing that I wanted to ask about dating, and that's about ghosting, because it seems to be so prevalent right now. And maybe it's because I am a female and I'm in a female echo chamber, but it seems to be the way that it happens is that it's kind of men perpetrating ghosting against women. And I don't think there's anything you can necessarily do to stop it, because some people seem really charming and really great and wonderful or whatever, and they can ghost you, and there's been no red flags before, but it can leave you feeling not great. So what is your advice to people who experience ghosting, and how to kind of deal with it? Because it's part and parcel of dating, isn't it? What do we
Yeah.
do? Just not date anymore, or go out there and take on this plethora of red and amber flags that are all over the place?
It's definitely not just men doing it.
Right.
I think it's pretty much across
The
the
board.
board. Although I do think women are probably slightly better communicators than men, and are less likely to do it. But definitely, it's just something that's happening in dating, and has always happened, but I think has definitely got a lot worse. People are just ending things by just themselves knowing it and not telling the other
Yeah.
person, like, and I am a bit guilty of this as well. I have done it before. In fact, at the moment, I'm currently in the middle of really trying not to ghost someone. And I and that's because I've gone into disorganized attachment. He's very keen. I think he's a bit limerent. That has made me go completely fucking avoidant.
Yeah.
And every time he messages me now, I'm like, and I really just want to say, I'm so sorry, mate. Like, we're not going to go any further. And he would really appreciate that. But I'm really struggling. And then I'm finding myself answering his calls and still being like, yeah, let's meet up on Friday for definite. And in my head, I'm like, I really don't want to meet up on Friday, but I'm just not quite sure how to say it yet. And I will say it to him. I will say it before tomorrow, which is Friday. But I find it incredibly difficult. And so when I'm ghosted, that's what I always try to remember is that it's really hard, and people feel like they can't face hurting your feelings. They can't face saying it, even though saying it is so much less hurtful.
Yeah.
We all just want to know, like, where do I stand? Just tell me and that's fine. And then I can just drop this. But there is something really, really hard about saying it. And then the other thing that I always try to remember is the fact that, like, so this guy who I just don't want to see on Friday, he's still really hot. He's still a really good catch. He ticks a lot of boxes. There are women all over the place who I think would be jumping at him, but he's not for me. And I have to remind myself of that when I get ghosted, that like they're not thinking, God, she's a fucking smelly, ugly piece of shit. You know what I mean? She's terrible in bed. They're just thinking like she ticks 100 boxes, but it's not me. Not me. She's not me. So I think we have to not take it personally. It's happening to everyone. And we have to commit to not doing it to other people ourselves. Because the more that we set the standard, that actually it's really cruel, it's really horrible. Don't do that to people. The more we create a culture where actually, hopefully, it will start to lessen. So don't do it yourselves. In fact, when I leave here today, I'm going to send the message, finally put him out of his misery.
I was in a situation like this as well with a girl who was like, we got on. She's a great person, nothing wrong with her. But it was just like, yeah, I'm not. I feel like she was very keen, and and it was making me retreat in return.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I need to like say something now. Yeah, and that's just the thing. Like, someone can be great, but it's just not for you.
Yeah.
But you did say something, right? Because she was talking about you not seeing other people and stuff.
Oh yeah,
After, like, the second date or something.
So basically we went on a date. We went on a date and it went really well. She actually ended up coming home with me, and we ended up sleeping together. And then the next day, she had messaged me and asked. She said, "Obviously, you're single, but I just if you sleep with anyone else, can you please let me know if we're still seeing each other?" And I said, "If that's what you want, then I'll do that. But like, how do you think that would make you feel?" And she was like, "Well, I'd hope you wouldn't want to sleep with anyone else." And it was like, well, we've not said that we're both looking for a relationship. I said I'm not looking for anything serious. Like, I'm in a period where I kind of need to focus a bit more on myself rather than give that to someone else. And it was just a bit like, And I think from then that kind of made me like retreat.
Yeah, it does something to you, doesn't it? Like, yeah, it makes you a bit like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too grippy.
And she's everyone that I've spoke to about it, like all my friends, I said, she is amazing. Like, she's beautiful, she's great conversation, intelligent, funny, but it's just not where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's just, I think sometimes when someone tries to enforce those boundaries on you, but it feels like too much.
It's funny because I was finding myself being the dickhead, basically, like waiting a long time between the messages and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing stuff to her that I hate being done to me.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel really bad about it because I was like, why are you doing that? Like, because you feel bad about it, or you're trying to let them down easy. Well, it's like the actual nice thing to do would be to say, this isn't where I'm at right now. Let's put a stop to it. That's the kindest thing you can do to someone.
But it's such a lesson, you know, like you know, exactly as you just said, like this guy's messaging me and I'll see the message come up and I'll think, oh, I better message him back, and I'll completely forget. And like literally 24 hours later, I'll be like, oh, fuck, shit.
Yeah.
Like, or I won't suddenly remember because he's messaging me again, morning. Yeah. And I'm like, but this needs to really remind me that when men are not messaging me for fucking 12 hours or whatever, that they're having that same feeling.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be like, could you message me a little bit more,
please, sir? Can I have a message?
Like, no, they don't want to. And if they wanted to, they would.
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line.
But that's a hard truth that is a hard pill to swallow.
I'm sitting here in silence because I never get the ones that are into me. It's always the other way around for me. So I don't really have to let people down. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but you've been on dates with people where you're like, okay, this
yeah,
isn't
but
for me.
when I've been on dates with people where it's like it isn't for me, they never text me and I never text them. Like, that's how it's been. It's not, there hasn't been like an ongoing thing of me dating someone where I'm like, oh shit, they're really into me and I'm not into them. Yeah, it doesn't
happen for me often.
Yeah, but we say this guy's really into me, but the part of the reason why I want to ghost him, and we've only had one date, we've only been speaking for a little while. The reason why I want to ghost him is actually, and why I'm so put off by him, he doesn't know anything about me and he hasn't bothered to ask. I know where his family holidayed last year. I know how many cousins his grandma's got. I know exactly what he's fucking doing every single day. I know everything about everything. And he has not, like, and I've even been dropping little things. Like on Tuesday, he was like, "Where are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm in the studio all day." Tumbleweed, like, you're not gonna. He's like, "Oh yeah, I've been in the gym." I would say to him, "Oh, what studio have you been in?" And then he'll say to me, "Oh, can you do anything this week?" And I'm like, "I've got to write a 6,000 word script for Sony for Monday." And then he just carries on the conversation. Again, I'd be saying to, because he doesn't know what I do.
It's the thing, he
Doesn't know
likes you
what I
because
do.
you listen to him, and I feel like this happens with a lot of men. Like, they start really liking someone because they feel like they can actually talk about themselves a lot, and they don't get to do that
Well,
with other
that's all he's
people.
been doing, and he's not
Exactly.
not once has he picked up on any conversation point about anything, not just about my work, about anything, and
Yeah.
then gone in and actually asked me. So even on the
Oh,
date, it was
yeah.
like a nice date, but it was so surface level. It was
Mm-hmm.
so surface level, and I keep giving him things,
Olive
and he's
branches.
just not interested in me. So now I'm like, well, I'm not interested in you,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
genuinely not. Like, you're
Yeah.
boring to me. Like,
Yeah, he hasn't asked you any questions. And then if people don't do that, the conversation can only ever stay at one level, which, like you say, is really
yeah.
surface. You're not having any deeper conversations, and then I think that your attachment to them can't grow anyway, because what is there to be
Exactly,
attached
but
to?
it's also putting me off him because I'm thinking you're not very emotionally mature or intelligent, because he's like, listen, you tick so many boxes. I'm already thinking about, like, where we
And
can
you're like,
go for Valentine's
but
Day or
you
whatever. And
don't
I'm like,
know
that exactly
me.
that. How am I ticking boxes, bro? What? Because I look like
Yeah.
because you fancy me. That's
That's
as far
it.
as it's. That's it. That's what you're saying to me,
Yeah.
because you actually have no way of me ticking any boxes if your boxes are related to anything with any depth, because you don't know.
Mm.
So yeah,
Put that one in the bin. But you've got to do your, not ghost him.
yeah, I
Yeah.
will try not to ghost him.
Right. Am I reading this dilemma? Should I do
Mhm.
my BBC voice?
Yeah, she does a really posh voice when she reads out that.
Okay, let's do it. Hi, girls. I've been in a long distance relationship for the last year. I live in Barcelona and he lives in London. Everything's been going very well. We call every night and chat during the day. We usually see each other once a month. He comes to me or I go to his. It's just that recently I feel he's not texting the way he used to. He used to text me first thing in the morning and now waits a couple of hours to do so. Over the last year, he started his own business, and I know he can get really busy. I trust him 100%, and he's never done or said anything that could make me doubt it. I'm just scared that maybe the honeymoon phase is over and that he will love me less with the distance. I don't really know what to do. I don't want to tell him and upset him, but recently I feel like I'm spiraling, checking his social media and doubting him a lot. I'm also going through a tough situation with work, so I think that's not helping. Any advice on how to deal with the situation?
How long they've been together? Oh.
The last year, 1 year.
Mm. Well, it's a bit feeds in a bit to kind of what we were saying. Like, so all of these things are so nuanced. And actually, the only way she's ever going to be able to move anything forward is communicating
Yeah.
with him
Yeah.
and telling him how he feels. It's as simple as that. If you're in a relationship with someone, you've been together for a year, there should really be no communication barrier that's stopping you from saying, bro, like, and also make sure you're not putting it on them. Like, you're not calling me in the morning anymore is not going to generate as good a outcome as, this is how I'm feeling.
Mhm.
I need to talk to you about how I'm feeling, not your actions. So I think she needs to have that conversation, but it's one of two things, right? It's either that, because there is a honeymoon period,
Mhm.
and at the beginning you're at it like rabbits and you just want to be in contact with each other all the time, and things do tend to settle. You can't necessarily maintain that level of intensity when you've been together for a little while. So it may just be that they're settling into more normal routines. But because it's a long distance relationship,
Mm.
can't really work like that. A long distance relationship requires different levels of communication. If you're living together, then you don't need to text each other good morning every morning. But if you're 5,000 miles away from each other, the communication is so fucking key. And you should be having regular, like, FaceTime dates. You should be having consistent. So it's either that or he's losing interest and he's involved with somebody else. And he's trying to show you that with the withdrawing, with the change. If the change has been so significant, if it was like a proper pattern and part of their long distance relationship to be like, we speak every morning, and then he's completely shifted that with no explanation and no reason for it, then he may well be pulling back. But again, you just don't. Nobody can speculate on these things apart from him. He's the only one can give you the answer, and the only way is by speaking to
And
him.
she says that she trusts him 100%, and that what did she say? I trust him 100%, and that she doesn't doubt him. But also she says she doesn't want to upset him by talking to him. So I'm just like,
But then what's your issue if you don't doubt him?
then it should, if you don't doubt him, then it's fine. But also, if you're in a relationship with someone that you're scared to communicate your feelings to, that's not really great. And I know it can be scary, but at the same time, what
We're both just getting comfortable.
but at the same time, if you're not going to do it, then what's the point of being in that relationship? Because you're going to keep feeling unvalued, unseen, unheard.
Yeah. But when she says upset him, what does she mean? Like, we
Well,
don't
offend
know.
Maybe she
him,
means
I guess.
offend him by basically
I
accusing
don't want
him
to
of
tell him and upset
cheating.
him that she's doubting him.
I think it definitely, she has to think about how she's going to communicate that to him and not be like, I think you're cheating on me. I think this, because it probably is, he might be like, what?
What's going on here?
Yeah.
She's been really busy with work.
Yeah. I think she just has to say, look, I'm just adjusting to this whole long distance thing. And I have to say, because there's been that shift, it's making me feel weird, you know. And maybe there's nothing behind that, but can we just talk about that and try and make the changes? Can you implement, you know, a call every day? Because that's the thing about long distance. It's
So
not
hard.
unreasonable to say we must, or not we must, or can we, you know, Zoom every other night at 5 p.m. or whatever. You know, it's different, a long distance relationship.
And I think if you want a long distance relationship to work, you have to have kind of a communication schedule, don't you? Otherwise life gets in the way and then someone's going to feel neglected.
Yeah. You have to really
put your pride aside as well.
I don't think I could do it.
I couldn't do it. I'd be shagging my neighbours. Like,
well,
have you got a fit neighbour?
No, but
Spain to
I just
London's
couldn't.
quite far. Yeah, Spain to London is quite far. I feel like I've done it before though, like, but London to Manchester, it's not that bad. I could just hop on a train.
It's too far. London, North London to South London is long distance to me. I don't date men in South London. It's too far. Yeah.
I'm dating someone now that lives in London and I'm in Manchester.
Oh my God.
But what we've done is like, we've already scheduled out for this month how many times I'm going to see him.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
They've got their trip scheduled. I like it. It's good.
But here comes the Limerance, me being obsessed.
Oh no.
Here we go.
No, I don't. It's not in a way. I don't feel anxious at all. That's the funny thing. Like, actually, in some situations where it's gone really well quite soon, I feel so much anxiety, and then they've ended up ghosting me, and it's like, oh, that's why, because they was love bombing me, basically.
But he's been really consistent, though.
Yeah, no, and I don't feel anxious at all.
If
about
he's
the
Limerance
situation.
too, see if you have two Limerance.
Oh, yeah, no, he's obsessed with me as well.
Then you're perfect. Then that's perfect. Then it sort of cancels out the negative parts of the Limerance because you're both on it together.
Yeah.
It's when you're Limerant and they're avoidant.
Yeah.
That's when it's.
Oh no, he's not like that at all. He's texting me all day.
You're cute.
I want to see the picture of that French MMA fighter as well.
Oh no, I'll show you.
Yeah, show me.
He's sexy, but what an arsehole.
You could circulate that on your because
oh my God,
I just need to make sure I don't
He used
date
to
him.
live in London, so he's probably been around London, come up to terrorise the north.
Because you posted a bit, just a tiny
just his
bit
arm.
of him.
Do you want to see a bitch now? Should we do it after?
Yeah, go on.
Just
all
his
right,
arm.
I'll get it
and
up.
then like people started replying to her saying, I know exactly who that is. This is exactly what happened.
Yes.
Well, do you remember? I don't know if you saw it on my page. So years ago, I put up that I was seeing this guy, and he just posted on his Snapchat that he's on holiday with a woman, and I was like, can't believe it. And then this woman messaged me, and she was like, oh my God, is his name Liam? Because the same thing's just happened to me. And I'm like, yes, it is. And then I posted that to say, oh my God. And then, like, in the end, 7
That was the
women.
picture. All I put up was his
7
arm.
women came forward who all
I put up was his
I
arm.
can't see his face
Oh no, you want to
properly
see his actual
there.
face?
Yeah, I want to see his face. Got nice arms though.
I know.
You just posted the arms. The arms are
all I
memorable.
posted was
They are
that.
quite distinctive arms.
Yeah.
And if you know, you know what I mean? If you've been with that guy, then you definitely know those arms.
Okay, no, I'll get his actual picture.
Find a picture of the man himself. Before we move on to the next one, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So if any of my friends show me
Yes.
picture, I will.
You know exactly what to do. Okay, got it. Yeah. Avoid.
What a
Avoid.
numpty.
There is all of those kind of pages now, isn't there? And I'm not going to name them, but
Oh, you're not allowed to name them.
I don't know.
Oh, where they like expose people.
Yeah, where they expose
Oh,
people.
we
dating
dating
the
the
same
same
guy.
man.
Yeah, I'm dating the same guy.
They won't let me on there, but apparently my book is constantly promoted
Mentioned
in
it
there.
is,
Yeah.
it is, yeah, constantly. But I think it's like it's one of those things where they have it like, are we dating the same guy in Manchester? Are we dating the same guy in London? Are we dating the same guy?
Yeah.
But I think it's like you have to take some of it with a pinch of salt. Like some people are clearly prolific, like
This one.
ghosters or users or whatever. Whereas some of them, you just like, well, he just didn't he just stopped talking to you, or he just, you know,
Yeah,
so
and
it's
this is why I think it's a
bit
bit dodgy.
risky, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
also, you know, imagine if men were doing that to us. Are we dating the same girl? And they were putting up pictures and they were like, yeah, she fucked me yesterday. You know what I
Yeah, it's a
mean?
bit
Yeah.
Like,
weird.
and because you can't verify. In some of the cases, I think it's brilliant
Mhm.
because it can be like, this guy
It's
abused me
abusive,
or
yeah.
whatever, and we can all
Mhm.
be warned. But in other cases, it is like exactly as you say. Yeah, he might have ghosted her, or he might have done something awful to her, or an awful being just not loved her in the way she wanted to. Or, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we can't necessarily go,
You can't
like,
verify it either, can you?
Yeah.
It's,
yeah,
and a lot of the times the people that post are posting anonymously as well, which I
yeah.
think is a bit of a smokescreen. So they post anonymously, but you can't respond anonymously. So I'm always a
Yeah.
little bit like, but
Yeah.
I've definitely seen guys that I've dated before in
Yeah.
there. And it's the same kind of thing they've done to me that they're being talked about. So there are definitely quite a lot of people who are prolific.
I feel like that one was prolific because two girls came forward with a similar story, and he'd only been
Mm,
living in Manchester since January time, and
mm.
he was not. We met on Hinge, so I'm like, he obviously just. And the other girl's story, her story was so similar to mine, and she only dated him for like 3-4 weeks, and that's the
That's
exact
what he
same as with
does. 1
me.
month.
But it was like so intense straight away, which
Mm.
is obviously red flags should be ringing in my head. But I'm delusional. Why would you not be obsessed with me after one date?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Delusional.
Do you want me to read the next one?
Yep, go for it.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
it. That was it.
Which
wasn't
one?
it?
Oh, that one was there.
That one, yeah.
Okay, we have a dilemma. So this one says, "Hey girls, absolutely love the podcast, and I'm normally a silent listener, but I decided to write in for this one. I'm 21 and have never been in a relationship or experienced anything romantic at all, first kiss, etc. And I think I'm going crazy. I used to not care about it, but now all my friends are in serious relationships or having flings, and it's made me realize how I've never had any of that. I know it's also partially because I went to an all-girls school and I don't drink or go on nights out, so I've never really had the opportunity to meet boys. And now I've decided to join dating apps to get a feel. And they're fun for a short time, but I still feel a pang of sadness that I've never experienced what my friends have. If you have any advice on how to overcome feeling like a late bloomer or giving confidence on approaching boys and relationships for the first time in general, I would greatly appreciate it."
Whoa! I mean,
Mm.
what I would say is, when I was that age and experienced it, the world has changed so
Yeah.
much since then. And I guess you're so naive at that stage as well. And I think the first relationship that I had, no, second relationship that I had from when I was 17 to 19 was like really emotionally abusive and horrible.
Mm.
It taught me a lot of lessons, and I have never put myself back in a situation like that. But it was super controlling, and I couldn't go anywhere. I lost all my friends. I couldn't. So I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Like to maneuver into that space as well when maybe the people you're talking to have more experience and you're.
Yeah, but I think you should be surprised. 21. There's a lot of people who have
Mm-hmm.
been extremely sensible, and what I wish that I had done, which
Yeah.
is fucking forget about boys. Get the bag, get your education, work on yourself, and then emerge from university a different even wait, maybe go traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then think about men. Like, I wish I'd not even thought about men or gone on any dates with them until I was 25.
Yeah.
So actually, I think this person is in a really great
Yeah.
position, and I hope actually you have been using that time to really work on you. Don't sit there thinking, "Oh, men are the be all and end all, and relationships are the be all and end all. If I haven't had one, I'm a failing person." No, who's to say that there's any age, particularly in which you should have started to think about settling down? As long as you are making sure that you are doing something with your life, working on whatever career you want, working on your hobbies and your interests and developing your friendships and things like that, you're fine. You're doing great. And you're really not missing out on anything. And I do understand exactly. I think it's a really good
Mm,
point that you made, Clara, which is that actually then it can start to feel like you're falling behind all of these other people. But you could have a friend who's had 7 boyfriends, between the ages of whatever, 18 and 21. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that that friend is any more experienced in relationships than you are, or that they have any better knowledge or wisdom or ability to approach relationships better. They might have actually just messed themselves up
Yeah, got more
fucking
trauma now.
completely and be bringing a whole ton of shit to dating. So actually, you're in a really, really good place, and
Yeah.
just continue to get to know yourself. And if you want to jump on the apps and go on dates, just have that confidence, and do not allow it to become something that consumes you, or something that you have to admit to people. You don't have to go out to dates with people and be like, just to let you know, I've never been with anyone else. Nah, it's none of their business. Whatever, make it up if you have to. Like, you don't need to. You don't need to lie, but don't make it your personality, because
Yeah.
then it will become too much.
'Cause it's like you're putting that shame on yourself of like thinking
And
that
there's
that's
nothing to be
bad.
ashamed
And
of. Yeah.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, isn't it? Because I guess like society does, we somehow, you know, as women, we're supposed to remain virgins forever, but yet also, you know, if you haven't had sex by the time you're kind of 14, 15, 16, there's something wrong with you. And so I suppose there is that kind of like complete contradiction there, but also that pressure again. Like I had sex when I was 15, and I had no business really having sex when I was 15.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
you feel
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
so
lie.
grown up.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't know about how to, you know, make sure it was pleasurable for me or any of that stuff. And I think that there's so much more to life than relationships. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really great point.
Yeah. I wish I'd lost my virginity at 30, honestly. It would have been much. But what was the point in all that sex
know,
for them? There was
but
pointless sex.
Oh God, I've had a lot
we
of
were
that.
talking about this on another podcast, and we asked people to say the age that they first started sexually exploring, the age they first had an orgasm by themselves,
Yeah.
and then the age they had like a partnered orgasm, and the gap sometimes like as big as 15
Yeah,
years.
mine was like 10
Yeah.
years, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
spent 10 years having sex with people where you weren't orgasming. Not to say that it couldn't be pleasurable without that, but still, you know,
Yeah.
not fair,
Nightmare.
is it?
Mm.
The orgasm gap. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Right, we've got
One
one
last
final
dilemma. That
dilemma
one.
to go. Yes. You'll like this one. Why do men want us to look like children? I always remember Catherine Ryan's bit about Cheryl Cole being a tiny little baby woman, and since then I've noticed that the beauty standards in the media are through the male gaze. Hair removal to be smooth like a child, anti-aging products and procedures to look younger and prevent signs of being a woman. How small women are fetishized. Ariana Grande, for example, plays up to the little girl aesthetic, but her content is so explicit. Bella Delphine, again, has a very little girl aesthetic, but has hardcore content. It creeps me out that one of the compliments I get most about my appearance is how young I look. Sexy schoolgirl fantasies, porn sites, top searches are teens. What are your thoughts?
The porn sites top searches are not teens.
Oh, really?
No. And the interesting thing about that, actually, I was speaking to Dr. Kate Dawson, who is a PhD. Well, she's a doctor, obviously, but her field of research is around porn and the harms of porn, particularly on teens. And the reason why teen is the highest, and this is hopefully going to reassure people, is because the vast majority of people that are on porn sites searching for porn are like
teenagers.
15-year-old boys.
Ah.
They don't want to watch fucking 30-year-old women. They want to watch
Yeah.
15-year-old girls. So there is that. That's obviously not the only people who
Yeah.
are watching teens. 15-year-olds watching 15-year-olds. I mean, hopefully they're not really 15-year-olds if
Yeah.
they're on a porn site. And if they were, it wouldn't be porn, it would be images of child sex abuse. But yes, so yes, that's normal, peer on peer. But anybody older who is fetishizing teenagers, again, real sex positive people. So I did this whole thing the other day about schoolgirl fantasies. Somebody had said that she was dating this guy, and he'd said that he wanted her to dress up as a schoolgirl. That was his fantasy. And I did this whole thing about like, nobody can tell me that this is just a kink. Nobody can tell me this is just a harmless kink that shouldn't be shamed. Because what are you role playing if you're in a schoolgirl fantasy? Because obviously, if we're doing power play and you're a police officer and I'm a burglar, that's an obvious power play. You're the
Yeah.
boss and I'm the secretary. You know, it could be anything. But if we're playing schoolgirl, then what are you playing opposite me? Paedophile. Nonce.
Yeah.
Like what are you being? Teacher. Okay, but you're a teacher who is a paedophile.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of people who are from the sex positive community will be very much like, no. It doesn't mean that everybody who wants schoolgirl fantasy is a paedophile. Doesn't mean that they have any fantasies whatsoever involving children or that they would harm any children. And And of course, that information has come from studies and
Mhm.
research. But what is studies and research? So you're getting a load of people in a room and you're saying, you've got a schoolgirl fantasy. Tell me what's behind that. And because they're not filling in, I want to fuck children. The research now shows, oh, it's something else. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So whilst researchers and things would say there's nothing in that, I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that there is not something in it. If it's about the power, then go and play something else.
Yeah.
And I think all of us know, certainly for me, when I got boobs, which was about 11 or 12, that is when it started. I was quite clearly a school child walking down the street, and that is when I probably had more attention from men than I've ever had in my whole life, when I was visibly a teenager. And even people like Andrew Tate are telling you quite clearly, openly now, women of teenage women, 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds have more value than older women because they've been through less dick, they've got less
No,
experience,
they say.
because
and
they're
they're
easy to
easier to
manipulate.
control.
Yeah.
Because they're easier to
But that's what he
manipulate.
actually says. They're easier to
That's-
control. He's
that's
not even.
disgusting.
He's not even trying to.
He said you
lie
can
about
put your
that.
imprint on them, and he's right. Of course, he's right, because it's much easier to control somebody in their teens than it would be a woman over the age of 25. You know, much easier. So of course, that's what it's all associated with: the ability to lead, control, be the alpha, be the top one. So if men are going for you
I
for
think that's
your
disgusting.
naivety or your childlikeness, then they either have weird sexual fantasies or they're looking to control and dominate,
Yeah.
which is not a good thing.
Yeah. And I have to say, on the topic of like people having pubic hair, I never, my vagina or vulva is never like fully shaven. I always have some hair. Sometimes it's like more than other times. But I've never had, like, I haven't had anyone that's like freaked out or complained about it. And
Yeah.
actually, a lot of conversations that I've had with grown adult men, the majority of them are like, no, like it's not, it wouldn't be an issue for me. So, but then when I posted something on the internet when I had slightly stubbly armpits, someone posted vomit faces and told me it was disgusting. So
Oh,
there you go, swings
God.
and roundabouts.
But I just think as well that a lot of women will be like, oh, well, I like to be clean shaven because I feel prettier or cleaner like that because growing up, like it's been ingrained into our heads. Like, all
But
the
I do prefer it. I have to say, I'm not a hair I don't like having any hair at all down there. And I don't necessarily, although I don't know, because, you know, I don't like men who are completely clean shaven. And the reason
Yeah.
I don't like it is because I have changed a bald child's nappy for many years. You know what I mean? I have a
Yeah.
little boy, and that kind of bald testicles just reminds me of a child. So I really don't like it on men, but I like it on myself. So I was going to say, I don't think men are, you know, but then maybe men are. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's weird because of that. But now I'm thinking that I find it weird when a men don't
Yeah.
have it. Then maybe it is weird for them to want
But
that.
then I guess like a woman with like a completely hairless like vulva is seen as like sexy. But if you go back a few decades, totally the opposite was
Yeah.
true. So I guess it's kind of like
Not even that long.
a fashion thing as
Yeah.
well.
Even in Sex and the City, they had a scene where they had an episode where it was like suddenly becoming fashion for people to remove pubic hair. Before that,
Yeah.
wasn't happening
That must have
really.
been early 2000s.
90s.
Yeah. When I see a man with no pubic hair, it just makes me think that they're trying to make their dick look bigger.
Yeah.
It makes me think cringe. You've been watching too much porn.
Yeah. I think it's good. I like if someone does a bit of like, I know there's a company called
Manscaping.
Manscaped, but
100%.
if people do like a little bit of trimming, so it's not like, you
Yeah.
know, overwhelming. But I think it would be a bit weird if a guy had no hair at all. I've definitely have experienced that, but not for a long time, I don't think.
It's
But
horrible. It makes their balls look really vulnerable.
yeah.
Not
You know what I
vulnerable. Cold and alone.
Yeah.
No one to keep them warm. Yes,
Yeah.
that's when they need the like willy warmer, you know? Like, a
Oh
little-
my
God,
God.
them
no.
Like a tea
hands and knit-
cozy.
Yeah. Someone's got to knit them one. But yeah, so I just to finish up that one about men wanting women to look like girls. I don't know if they do. I think there are obviously going to be some men who do, and I think the anti-aging stuff comes from pressures from it. Well, it's like a societal pressure that you're
Yeah.
taught because you've grown up being told men are like silver foxes and women once you pass the age of 40, that's it. You're going to suddenly get a two-piece outfit, cut your hair down, and you know, totter around with your mates and go to like a coffee shop and have a slice of cake or whatever it is. But you know, I'm 40, you're 40. That's not how life looks anymore at
Yeah.
all.
I get a lot. I still get a lot of male attention.
Yeah.
You know, it's even though I think it was more sexual objectification when I was 12. You know what I mean? It would be like, oi, get your tits out
Yeah.
kind of thing. Whereas now men will approach me and speak to me.
Yeah.
So actually, I think you're right. It's not society saying, you know, middle-aged women are. It's society saying it, not men necessarily.
Yeah. And also, what comes from that societal pressure is businesses who pop up and say, right, we're going to make you feel even more shit about yourself for having a wrinkle on your face or, you know, grey hair. And we're going to sell you this magical cure. Ta-da! And I think we have to be really conscious of how many businesses and how many billions of pounds are made from our insecurities and how powerful those industries are to impact society and kind of cultural belief systems as well. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
High five? Cool.
High five to you.
Through the air. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's one of my favourite podcasts. Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Really good. I've been listening to it when I've been doing cooking, cleaning, all sorts. My podcasts are really short. They're like fucking 15 minutes each, 3 times a week. But I like these long form, like can just sit and listen.
Conversations.
Yeah,
We've
really
had some very good conversations today. So thank you.
Well, you've just had in general. The podcast is really. I'll do a few posts.
Will you listen to your this episode back?
I don't know. I find it.
I listen to our podcast every Monday because I like to hear it from like the viewer's perspective.
I have to listen to it.
I listen to my own, to do all the edits and everything, but I find it really difficult. And I'm always saying to Sony, like, this is really shit. This sounds awful. They're like, it's really good. I'm like, no, it's terrible. We can't let this one go out. And then it will go out and people will really enjoy it. And I'm like, there's just something about listening to your own shit that's like...
Can you let people know where they can find you? So people are listening, they can find the podcast, they can find your Instagram page, which is full of loads of stuff. And as you said, the OK columns out weekly as well. There's so much stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at LALALA Let Me Explain on Instagram. My podcast is on all platforms. It's not you, it's them, but it might be you. You can find me weekly on a Monday in OK Magazine. And that's it, really.
And on social media, doing loads of stuff, including things like fuckboy replies, which is really helpful. So you send Layla the message that you would send to a fuckboy, and she'll send you the reply, which is good. They're so funny, some of them as well.
I enjoy those.
You do loads of different stuff, so it's like well worth following you, and especially if you're out there and you're dating, definitely a place to be. So thanks for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've loved it, haven't we?
I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, hopefully you've absolutely loved it. Don't forget to leave a review and to like the podcast.
Subscribe
on YouTube.
Subscribe to YouTube. Like the YouTube. What are we doing after? Oh yeah, comment on YouTube. TikTok, Instagram.
All of
5-star review.
5-star review. Mum told me pod.
God, there's so many things to do.
Boom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.